flipped a coin, okay? You and me. You and me. Coin flip is sacred.
Y'all ready for a show today, baby? Go time, baby. We've been waiting all week for this. This is where it happens right here, man. We man up, we stand up. We man up, we stand up. We're all we got. We're all we need. We're all we got. We're all we need. We're all we got. We're all we need.
Hit anything that moves. We're playmakers, man. We advance, nothing less.
You don't like this? Trust me, you don't like it.
We're between the white lines. This is football. Welcome to the big league. I won the toss. I took the football. Drive it down that throat.
Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your skull?
Hey, every season is full of defining moments. Let's make this day a defining moment for us in our quest.
Game time! Game time!
Welcome, everybody, to episode 23 of the CoinFlip NFL Week 5, episode 5 of season 2 for us. As always, Gup here with my partner Tambo at Toe Tagging Tambo on Twitter. Tambo, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. I'm coming off some golf chat. We got that in, and now we're getting to the doubleheader. So get on to the fun stuff. Had a good week last week. I'm excited to get back to it.
Yeah, as always, we focus mainly on the NFL DFS main slate. We will toss in a little Thursday night, a little betting, a little contest for those who did not get killed last weekend in the Bloody Sunday for the Survivor. All that later on. So last week, how did it go for you? I know you had a positive week for sure, but overall.
Yeah, I didn't win 100K like everybody else on Twitter, but had a pretty good week, actually. It could have been a lot better. I jumped up and played the big 44-44, cashed in that one, came in 30th, did well. I didn't have, Kirk got hurt at the end, but he didn't do nothing the whole game, or I could have done a lot better. 6th in the $9 slant, so we've talked about that on here a few times. Just an awesome Gup, man, I can't even talk. Cup and Goff lineup that came out of nowhere, so I was happy with that. Just missed on a couple things. In the $5 FFWC, I've been chasing that. I got 3rd, 5th, 12th, 17th, 19th. I had 5 right there in the top 20. So really just needed one more, man. And then the other thing, too, was Super Draft, which we talked about. Just incredible. I think I had 4 out of 6 lineups cash on there, and I had a couple moving up the board. So, liking that. Lots of overlay and lots of opportunity over on that side as well.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit as well. Started off rough for me. I went 0 for 2 on bad beats Thursday night, which I think most people, if you were on the Packers, I don't know if I call that a bad beat, but definitely had over 13.5 the second half. And I think they had 8 tries from the 1-inch line and chose not to run the ball and did not score a point. So I kind of started the week off bad, had a decent Sunday. I think I went 4-3, lost a little money line parlay as well. So slight loss in NFL, first losing week of the year in NFL for me. Main slate was not kind to me. Frustrating in general because of some of the things I was on most of the week. Talked about last week on the pod. Winston was a guy I mentioned and liked. Emmanuel Sanders was a guy I mentioned and liked. There were just several of them that I didn't key up enough, and really it came down to just my lineup construction. Like I had the right pieces, just not together. I had Cup, and Godwin, but didn't have them in the same lineup type deal. And so just bubbled all over the place. Did decent on Showdown. Sunday night, I didn't play much Monday night. I had too much going on. I think I put one lineup in. And not min cash. I did okay. It was in the 180, whatever that one is, and I think I won back 275. So just a single bullet that night, nothing big, but overall losing week DK for me for sure. Definitely, not much I can be mad about. Process was fine. Guys I were on was fine. I didn't have any big misses. I just didn't construct well. And some weeks that happens, and you just try to learn and go around it a little better. It was definitely a week to have the game stack, which isn't always the case anymore. I think that got really hot and the new fad. Team stacks are still big, but no, I think this is really, correct me if I'm wrong, the first week we've had, like, if you would have stuck stacked basically that whole game, even the defenses, because they wind up, getting defensive points, even with the high scoring. We talk about that a lot. You can give up 40, but with the pick 6 and a couple sacks, you're still scoring. I think you could have stacked your entire lineup with that and won pretty good across the board.
Yeah, huge game. Scoring was crazy. I think something, what was it, over 90 points or something, I believe? Like, it was incredible.
95 with the last defensive touchdown by the Bucks. I was all over the Bucks betting wise. I loved them plus 9.5, and mentioned not playing that, and still I played it. I did bet it, so that was one good thing, but just didn't get enough of those pieces in there like I should have. Run through the sponsors and affiliates real quick. If you're new to the pod, we tried to kind of action-packed, less than an hour type deal. We went a little long last week, so we're going to try to stay on focus. Last week was my rant, so I took the blame for that. Point being, there's so much information out there that we want to get the good stuff as quick as possible, and a quick, commute for you, drive in the morning if you're listening to this tomorrow morning on Thursday. As Tambo mentioned, our official sponsor this season is Super Draft. Great guys over there, really committed to building something different and in for the long haul. They're giving away, probably $40,000 a week right now in overlay. If you're not in, we have content that is going out now. I have a lineup builder that I released with the other DraftKings and FanDuel lineup builders, so you can build your lineups and load them. Use the code GUP. You can go to the website and the link's there. You deposit $10, you get $10. If you're not a member and want to become a member, once you deposit and SuperDraft will send us the list, we will give you a code to try us out for a week for free. If you're a current member, when we get the list, we will reach out to you with a $10 credit in our merchandise store. All that will kind of start next week. If you've already deposited in your current member, we have the list, so you'll still get it. Yeah. We'll reach out to you. We just waiting to compile all that. So current members get $10 from us to use in the store. That will come in handy in the near future. And then if you're a guy on the fence and you want to try us out for a week, it's basically free to try us out, and you get a free $10 from Super Draft. So it's really a no-lose situation. The big contest they have that I spoke of is $20 exactly an entry. So you can take that $10 they're going to give you with your $10 you deposit, put your entry in. It's $25,000 the first, $125,000 pot. Last week, I believe there was at least 30,000 overlay, maybe more. But they're in. I've talked to the guys. Tambo's talked to some of the directors up there high up on the list, and these guys are all in. This isn't a fad deal. It's a unique setup. It'll be interesting to try to continue to develop strategies for it. I think our community will have an edge in it because of how close we are with that product right now. D-Rock's doing some content for us, limited content because we're still focused on everything else, but it's probably better than most that are out there. So give them a try. Great sponsors for us this year. Fanshare Sports, as always, if you want to get the extreme and pro advantage on ownership, use the code 20%. Use the code GUP to get 20% off. The link is on the site as well. All these links are on the same site, gupscorner.com/affiliates. PFF, new offer from them that came out last night. Bit on the rope. We're a quarter way through the season, and you still think you may want to try them out. This is for the deep dive capability guy, the guy that wants to get knee deep in all kinds of data and grades and even college. You want to start looking at the draft board for next year. You want to look at the college rookie class. They have everything you want as a true hardcore football guy. Their stats and models are great as well. Obviously, we have ours that are we think is tremendous. These guys are like next level deep information if you want to go check them out. A lot of the major industry guys reference their grades and stuff, and they're great. I mean, we like being affiliates with them. Their offer now is you can go on the website, click the link. The codes are on the website as well. You can get $10 off for the PFF Elite on their monthly subscription. You can get $50 off on an annual subscription for the Elite right now. So go to our website, click the links. The codes are there for you to use. You can say $50, and that's great. That's a great deal because it's an annual. So it means you would get it through this time next year. So you're really not losing anything. You're getting a pretty big discount there. As always, rate and review us on iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, Twitch. Some big giveaways coming up in the next month. Mentioned it. We'll probably have a big Halloween giveaway as well. If you rate and review us on iTunes, that gets you a double entry. We always pick on the big giveaways. I always pick a winner from someone that's reviewed us, and then we'll pick some from the other platforms as well. I will start giving away some DK money and bonuses as well. Now we're rolling in the football season. So I always pick winners from that list. So meaning if you have done it or you do it now and you don't win next week per se, you're still in the drawing. I keep the same list for everybody. So you're never off unless you win. And we obviously kind of not move you to the side, but move you back down. We don't want the same guy winning over and over. But if you win on the iTunes review and I happen to draw you your Facebook like, I mean, that's good for you being in multiple ways. I'm not going to discredit you for doing that. The listener league is up. Winner this week will get $50 merchandise credit to the GC store. I would review the listener league lineup from last week, but my phone physically crashed like in the middle of the last emergency 9. So I can't even pull up my phone right now. So if I get to it by the end of the show, I will review that. If not, we will move right on to this week and get rolling. Tambo, anything different this week for your strategy as far as the way the games pretty as far as Vegas goes, lower scoring games predicted across the board, some key injuries, anything stick out as far as strategy, just right off the pot, high level type stuff?
Mainly just like you said, the injuries is a big play here. So you got to use those to your advantage where you can. A lot of receivers on, John Ross hit the IR today. James Conner's questionable. Christian Kirk is out. He's going to be out for, it looks like, at least a week. Devontae Adams is likely out from what I'm seeing right now. So there's possibility there in that Green Bay Dallas game. Just a few spots. I got no real changes in strategy or anything. I'm going to stick to what worked last week and hope I can replicate the same results. But, I'm not going to play as high this week. Last week, I felt better about the slate. I still like the slate. I'm dialed into it. I liked last week a lot better, and they had the big 44-44. I'm not going to do nothing like that this week myself.
Yeah, traditionally, in a tighter slate like this, I seem to have done better historically, at least looking back at my results. Not saying that gives me an advantage, meaning especially like if you're a 1-3, 1-5 type lineup person, when you have to really dive to figure out your core, your strategy, because there's not a game or two that just pop that everybody's going to go to. So you either have to choose to eat that and move elsewhere or fade it completely or something like that. I really think this week's a strategic week. And so the deep dive and the extra time I think will pay off. Overall strategy is not going to change for me. I know we've had mentioned that why do we do our pod on Wednesday? It still gets talked about in the Slack. I've talked about over and over. Like, this is the only time we really have to get this going. And honestly, we're not even one of the first to do it. There's a ton of football pods already out on DFS.
Yeah.
The way the week rolls out, Thursday is kind of like my reset night. Like, I get to make sure I still have a family and all that. And then Friday, we're rolling into I spent an hour or two getting all of my contest stuff in Vegas through our proxy and stuff, getting ready for college football, diving into the college football slate. It's the weekend with the kids, maybe out to dinner. I mean, there's just so much stuff that if we didn't do it tonight, A, we couldn't talk about tomorrow's stuff, and B, we do such a good job, and you guys help us on Saturday with the questions that we get to come back and talk about all of it on Saturday night together. So far, for the majority, I think you guys like it. I just want to reiterate that for the guys that may question why we go tonight, maybe not tomorrow night. That's why.
One thing too, Gub, not to cut you off, but I mean, you're so nice about it. The bottom line is it's for everybody, right? This is a free podcast that goes out. When we do the coin flip, everybody gets to listen to this. We got no problem with that. We want as many people to share it, like it, review it, whatever they can as possible. But there's lots out already. There's the Monday pricing that comes out early that doesn't have Monday night. So we can talk about that. There's Thursday night showdown. There's bets that lines will change. There's fantastic stuff that we're talking about. And as Gup said, there's already a lot of podcasts out there. So we want this out there now. And we're a business too. We're a family, we're a community, but we run a business. If you want the best information, clearly that's on Saturday in the Audible. So come back and join us. We're going to give you codes at the end. We're going to have you all set up to come on board. But this is the spot to get as much knowledge as we can give you right now. A deep dive, an early look, if you will. There'll be other podcasts come out tomorrow and the next day. And then Saturday, we sew it all together and marry it up. And articles come out and content comes out. We had some Fournette over Mac last week. We had some different stuff in there that were big plays on the week that not as many people were on. You got to jump on board if you want that. But we're providing you as much as we possibly can and as much action-packed value in this podcast as we can.
Yeah, and I like the flow because it's not necessarily first look because we get the pricing on Mondays, but for me
Wednesday
the flow, I get to, and I really I try to do as little as possible on Thursday, mainly to reset my mind from the golf grind, everything I've done to this point for football. And then I wake up Friday with kind of a fresh view and make sure everything's still clicking. That's me personally, but that kind of lets the flow go, and we try to appreciate in the community. We're going to roll quickly through the Thursday night game and then knock out the main slate in action-packed fashion. Rams, Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 1.5 on the consensus. I think they may be 1 on the super. We'll get to that in a little bit later. 49.5 total. What would be, if I'm not mistaken, the highest total on the slate if this was a Sunday slate. So a lot of points predicted. Seahawks at home, like I said. Tambo, 120 seconds or less. Tell me how you want to attack this game, and I'll add a few comments at the end.
Yeah, everything you just prefaced it with lets me know it's going to be 3-0, right? We finally get a good finally get a good island game that's not just terrible two teams. If you've seen the whole schedule for the year, it looks brutal, but this is a great one, and I like it. So a couple things. Just saw Tampa Bay crush the Rams. I get that, but you also saw the Rams score points as well. So I feel like a lot of people are going to be on that side of the ball because they just got to watch it happen. But I actually still like a lot of the Seahawks plays here. I like Russell Wilson. I like Tyler Lockett. I think we just saw that secondary get picked apart by Jameis Winston. Russell Wilson's having a great year. We don't know. Rashad Penny still didn't practice today, so that's a key thing to keep your eye on. If you're thinking about, leveraging everyone's going to be on the pass game and you want to go with Carson, I do like leveraging the running game on the Rams side. We just saw Woods, Kupp, Cooks, all these guys have a great game. I actually like Gurley the most, and even think he'd be a sneaky captain here. And the reason is, if you think back to the last 2 weeks, they played New Orleans, and Kamara came out of nowhere after he burned everybody, and Kamara had a great game, and they checked it down to him, I think, 11 or 12 times that he had 11, 12 targets. He got 9 catches. And then last week was the same sort of thing again with DJ. We finally saw, David Johnson break out, get that same sort of thing. But it's all the Seahawks game plan is to have you just check it down against them like that. So the good news is Gurley looks like he still has a little bit of that burst. And if he's getting those checkdowns, he might be able to actually take one to the house. So if he can get scoring early, the Rams can keep this competitive and be in it. It's a 1.5 point spread or a 1 point spread. I think it's going to be a good game. I really like him in this game to be a little bit different and go away from the passing game that everybody just saw be so prevalent in the game with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about showdown, you have to be unique unless you're putting in 150 lineups, which 98% of people can't afford to put 1,500 in or 3,000. So there's no reason for us to waste time and talk about it or tweet about it and all that stuff. The majority of people are probably putting bullets in, or they may do 10 lineups. And so you have to find a way to be different when you only have 2 teams. And if you go out there and you start with Kupp or Woods and go Rams passing and they go off, your chance of having the nuts is very small because there's going to be a lot of people that do that. You could be a little different, but I agree. Actually, Gurley was the one I mentioned or I wrote down as a possible captain under the radar. Doesn't get a ton of the touches, but he still gets them. But the perception is he's way less than last year. But he could easily have a 3 touchdown game out of nowhere here
with the bust out run or whatever, because of the check down where he can shake a guy.
Yeah, and it could be 2 rushing, 1 receiving, something like that. I definitely don't mind a DK Metcalf. I think we saw the Rams D struggle against a Godwin, bigger size, big body type receiver. He could be a sneaky play, not necessarily, maybe not captain, but that's a guy I mentioned. And then I like the Seahawks at home in general. I don't mind even going the route of maybe playing the D like the Bucs last week. Rams may score and get theirs, but the Seahawks could have some turnovers or potential defensive touchdown in this situation as well. Those are kind of my thoughts to add on to that. Sunday main slate, the reason why you all are here, our playbook, we open it up, go position by position. We give our play, fades, and value and sleepers for each value/sleeper, I guess, for each position. Quarterback and tight end, we narrow it down a little bit, as well as defense. We still give a value play on tight end and quarterback. D, we just do, we still give a fade on those. D and defense, we do not. There's only so limited that we hedge off of that. 2 each on running back and wide receivers on those categories. Our value that we started last week, quarterback 5,500 or less, running back 5,000 or less, wide receiver 5,000 or less, tight end 4,000 or less, D 3,000 or less. Tambo, kick us off with your play, fade, and value for the quarterback position.
Yeah, first one play is going to be pretty popular this week, but I think for good reason, and his price is right. The matchup's good. It's at home. But I like Deshaun Watson against Atlanta. We know that matchup, what it can be. They made Marcus Mariota look like a hero. So if you've got Watson coming out here, I think this could be a big game. We'll talk about it with stacks and with some of the plays that I'm on this week. But been waiting for that game. He just missed Fuller. He just missed Hopkins last week. It's just waiting to happen. We know that running backs, especially pass catching running backs, get off against this Atlanta team. So I really like Watson. I know he's going to be popular, but stack him up more. Use different running backs. There's ways to be different within the stack. Use Freeman on the other side, and I'll talk about him after. But and say that he starts the game off with a rushing touchdown or two, and then Watson has to come from behind. There's lots of ways that you can do that stack. My fade is going to be Brady. I don't think he'll be super popular, but it's a Washington team that doesn't look that good. They should beat up on him, but he just hasn't been needed, right? There's too many options on that squad. There's too many, blowout opportunities or different things for them that I just don't see him needed in these blowouts. And they've got an easy schedule to start the season. Like, my God, the Patriots are playing nobody for like the first 8 to 10 games. And then they finally get to like Kansas City and a couple teams that are going to be tough, but wow, they're going to just have a chance at 16-0 again for what it looks like. And then value, I don't know if it's going to be popular or not, but I'm going with the squeaky wheel, theory with Adam Thielen, and who knows what's going to happen with Diggs. There's rumors out there that he's getting traded because he was a non-participant in practice, but non-injury related. And people joke that means he's sitting in Bill Belichick's chair waiting to get brought over as the AB replacement, or whatever you want to call it over there in New England. But I like Cousins. Price is cheap, 5,300. He's got his weapons. If Diggs plays, especially, like him even more. Rudolph in this game is a fine play. I like Thielen. I like Diggs, all those guys. So I think Cousins is just too cheap, and I'm going to go with that, and it'll come into play with some of the other things that I'm on this week when we talk about different positions.
Yeah, I very similar in thinking this week, and I kind of had some 1Bs in case we were. I figured Watson, one of us would cover. I do like him. A 1B to that, just to get a little bit of differentiation from us, is Rivers. I like Rivers at home. Denver's struggling. They lost their star linebacker. I just lost his name. Bradley Chubb. So I like on defense. Denver's hurt.
Oh, you're talking about Denver's side. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And so I think he could have a big game at home. Looked pretty surprised me at how well they played against the Dolphins. Obviously, I lost that analysis on thinking the Dolphins would hang tough. So I think that could be a under the radar type with some of the chalk that may hit this week. My fade's on the other side of the game that we like, and it's Matt Ryan. I have almost an auto fade if Matt Ryan's on the road, especially, in this type of situation. I don't, I guess I could see him doing well. Houston's D is decent as far as putting some pressure on. We know that. I just don't like Ryan on the road as much as I do at home. So a spot where I could see him because of the slate and them being the highest point total on the slate right now, 48.5, that he could be a little higher owned than usual. I don't mind him if he's kind of going under the radar, but that's a prediction on Wednesday that I would fade him. But if he's going to go like no own, then I certainly don't mind playing Ryan against Houston. My prediction on the fade there is that he's going to be one of the higher owns on the slate, being that's 50. Guys may try to be tricky and go, Ryan, Julio, Ridley, run it back with Hopkins. I mean, to get enough of those and be different than the chalky quote unquote Watson. So just a thought there on Wednesday. I had Cousin written down as well, but my second, it was kind of 1A, 1B. I actually like Bridgewater. I think at $5,200 at home, I think Tampa's performance, makes the Saints pay attention. It's a divisional game. These two normally tend to score high when playing against each other. I think Watson's going to bring it. I think Bridgewater, in a way, wants to eventually prove that he can be a quarterback in this league, and it's not just, and the Tampa Bay doesn't have the type of defensive pressure that Dallas did last week to, force that game plan that they did. So I see a much higher scoring game, and everybody that watched that, another deal I like to do, especially in the NFL, a game that was on the mainstream that most of the people are watching, that's a complete snooze fest, 13-12 or whatever it was. Recency bias I just talked about on, the E9 was that I don't think anybody will hardly play him, and I think it could be a potential smash spot for him to actually have an open-up game, get Michael Thomas involved. We'll talk about some stacks later. Kamara out of the backfield. I think, Tampa Bay is good at putting pressure, but they can definitely give up points. They still gave up 40 points last week that may go under the radar, so I like Bridgewater as value. I will kick off the running back. I'm going back to Cook this week. Didn't play him much last week against the Bears. I do like the matchup against the Giants. I think they'll try to establish a run. They've obviously done it all week, all year. But I do agree with you that I think they may try to open the playbook and throw it. I think there was I think even Thielen actually mentioned some stuff, eventually can't run the ball 180 times or something like that. I saw a quote, didn't see it exactly. 8,400 is a steep price. So I think you may be able to get some leverage at that price, because I think most would just soon go pay for CMC or Kamara if they're going to go up that high. So, or even Zeke's 100
Zeke is
cheaper.
right there. Yeah, that's the Zeke pivot for sure.
So I think I would call it a value in the sense ownership wise. By the time we get to Saturday, obviously the price, it doesn't fit, but I do like Cook as a potential pivot. My next one's going to kind of depend on, I kind of like to hear what you hear about this. I like Gordon this week because I don't know how many people actually go to him at 7,000. But it depends on what happens with the quarterback situation for the Jets. But I like Bell if he winds up getting a starting quarterback back. Donald, $6,800, a great discount off of the elites up top. We know this guy can still ball. And if Sam Darnold gets back, he's healthy, can play. Philly's not had the best, defense all year by any means. And I think hitting Bell out of the backfield will be key for Donald. Get him loose, get him back in rhythm. That'll be a game plan they strategize around. I personally think Donald comes back, but I know it's still iffy at this point. So I like Bell as kind of a play there that may be off the radar. Next, my fade is tough for me. It's DJ right now, strictly because I could see a lot of people being on him. 7,500, so a little discount from the top. I think anybody that watched that Cincinnati game thinks they're just garbage, and they're not great, but I think they could compete. Anybody can compete against Arizona. I'm so wishy-washy on that team right now. I keep going back to it, and it keeps letting me down. Last week wasn't great. That offense just isn't clicking. And so for 7,500 currently on Wednesday night, I think I would fade DJ and go elsewhere. I'd drop down to like a Bell over that. Value, I like Miles Sanders this week in that matchup. I'm kind of looking at that Philly Jets game as a potential, not scoring high, but some pieces you could grab from there, especially one-offs. The Jets D obviously has struggled this year. They're 14-point underdogs here. I do like them as a dog roll this week. But Sanders, they still keep trying to get him involved. I think that's going to be – he's a rookie. I think people forget that at times and think he's just garbage. Coach is committed to him, and so for 4,500, if I'm going down that low, I think it's a good price to try to get some return there. And I don't mind going back to Phillip Lindsay again on the road against the Chargers, but divisional game, I don't think many are going to go the Broncos right now. They just look garbage. So I would go there at 4,900. A 2B, maybe Carlos Hyde at 4,300 in that game. I think you could get some action. I do think that may be more of a shootout, but that's a potential other guy. What do you like at running back?
I like your call on Hyde there a little bit because that's where, like we said, everyone's going to have Fuller and Hopkins and all those types of guys. So I do like that. I'm on the chalk right now. I'm on Zeke, 8,300. Feels just way too cheap. I don't know why. I actually like that better than paying up. I know that CMC is getting talked about already at 8,700 because why is he not over 9,000? I have no clue how he doesn't go up, but I don't know. We'll talk about him in a second. DJ's the other guy. I'm surprised you're off him because you know the team so well and you like them so much. And I don't know if it's like, say, if he gets super popular, I understand that. But it's, man, right. With Kirk out and the way they use that offense, they haven't been going out a ton, right? All their passes, they're not long bombs. They played right into Seattle's hand in that one game there where it just was a check down session. So I'm good with DJ and Zeke. Those are my two plays as of right now. If they're going to be the most popular, I'll get different elsewhere. And it sort of goes in with my fade. I had Cook in because of the obvious reasons that I'm talking about. Cousins game, the squeaky wheel. I think they're going to have to pass. They're going to try and chop down on him, which other teams have tried, probably stacking the box and whatever against him. And the thing about Cook, though, is that you kind of almost have to have, like, if I'd rather him be 10% so I can just have sort of the field and be okay with it, because if he's like a Chubb, right? Like Chubb just busted out last game and just took off one play and that ends it. Or Fournette, it just had a career game, but the game before that, when remember Fournette was like -6 points or -6 yards the whole game, and then boom, 75-yard touchdown. Like that's Cook. Cook is a baller, but his price has caught up, 8,300 or 8,400. Sorry, that's getting up there. So it's between him and CMC. If CMC is going to be super chalk, I might play him in cash games because I do feel like he's too cheap, but skip on him in GPPs because I do see an avenue where he could fail, almost like Keenan Allen last week. You had to play, like it felt like you had to play him in cash because, just how can he be so cheap for what his role is? But then you can see a very clear avenue where Miami could just take him out of that game completely or be dumbfounded in the second half and just get blown out, and then he wasn't used. So, we were both wrong in that call. And when we get to Survivor later, that's going to play a piece because I'm not in Survivor anymore. I don't know about you, but I got cute and went to the Rams there. So I should have just played the team up against Miami and I'd still be in this thing. And then my last two. So if Connor's out, Samuels is an easy one for me. I think just the value. It's against Baltimore. It's a tough game. They're going to need different plays. In college, he was like a tight end / back on the line. So you can use him plenty here against Baltimore. He'd be a good little out for them. I don't mind that at all. But I'm not sure what Connor's going to do. So he looks like value. And then Devontae Freeman, who I mentioned earlier, he's been getting the touches, but now he's starting to get the targets. He got 9 last game. So again, in this game, to be different with your stacks, like you said, I'm kind of with you on the Ryan thing, unless Ryan ends up being 5% and Watson ends up being 25. Like last week, you had a great call in the audible. Why we tell you to tune in. You brought Jameis Winston back. You said everyone's going to be on Goff. I don't see why you can't go on Jameis Winston. And while Goff and him were both in winning tournament lineups, I really felt like Winston had the upside because the ownership and he threw the ball away at the end. That he didn't have that interception, they would have had the last drive instead of LA. So he would have got another drive of throwing the ball around. So Devontae Freeman and Samuels to round it out for me for running back.
Why don't you kick us right off to wide receiver?
Yeah, it's gonna stick with my stacks here at play. So Hopkins, still like him, like I talked about last week. Just missed him. The pairing sits well. Atlanta is just tough to play against. They're bad on the road. Tough to play against in the sense of meaning that they're easier to beat. They're not a tough defense. It's tough to imagine them keeping up is what I'm trying to say against Houston here. So they'll be in catch-up mode. I think it'll start strong with a lot of throwing. I like Hopkins. You hinted at Michael Thomas earlier. I love him, and I think the whole world does because he's 6,600. I don't know where they got that price from, but I think you hit on the key, and that's everyone's going to play Michael Thomas. Very little are going to stack him with Teddy Bridgewater. So love that call. Think that's a sneaky stack this week, but I definitely love Thomas as my second play. My fade is going to be Edelman. I know their offense, it's anybody's game, but that's sort of the problem. I talk about Fade and Brady. I like to sort of correlate these things together. You got James White. You got Josh Gordon. Now, Josh Gordon did just show up, I think, an hour and a half or 2 hours ago on the injury report, supposedly. So we'll have to monitor that, and then it changes the whole game. But as of now, I'm not loving that play in Edelman. Fuller is still at 4,500 for value. So definitely love that. Like I said, he's just a big play waiting to happen. It only takes one. Almost got there last week. He's still got plenty of targets rolling in the last 4 games that he's played. And then the big values this week is going to be with John Ross out is Auden Tate, 3,400, I want to say, or 3,800. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I should have it in front of me. I apologize. But value in itself, because he was already getting snap counts and target share with John Ross there. Now you take out John Ross. Arizona might be done with this tight end thing. I know everyone said that last week, and then Will Dissly still got there. But I'm not sure. Eifert doesn't play a lot of snaps. I'll mention on that later. But Auden Tate to me is just too good of a play in something like cash. Maybe he doesn't have the full upside for winning you a GPP, but for cash, just to fit him in, you can easily get 10 plus points out of him for 3,800 or whatever he is. Might be less.
Yeah, no, most of that I agree with. None of that I disagree with. I think there's some. That's what I talked about earlier to start the pod. Was there are some clear spots this week and not so clear, and so there's going to be muddy waters in there that we have to wade through by the time we get to Saturday, especially some of these late injuries that are popping up. Yeah. I obviously do like Thomas this week. It'll be in play in my stackable with the Bridgewater to try to be a little different. To your point, that was kind of the theme. Hopkins was my play as well, mainly because I like Deshaun. As we're kind of on tune there, which if you're new to the pod, we definitely haven't been that way every week so far. So it's kind of unusual in a sense with so many there. My fade is Julio. Same reason on Ryan, especially 7,700. I could see if maybe he's going to go under the radar that you run it back with him and hope for, but I definitely don't want to. That's just a high price to pay for a guy whose quarterback didn't perform extremely well on the road. But I could see it, being a maybe contrarian build. Ownership will dictate that. But as of right now, Julio's the fade for me. My value, my first one was Jamison Crowder. This is dictated on the fact that Darnold plays. So I think if Darnold plays, I think he brings more value to the situation and could be a completely under the radar type of play. I do like Auden Tate a lot. Obviously, I think a lot of people will go there at 3,500, especially with Ross is officially out. And with that, I mean, I wouldn't mind going to Boyd if you wanted to go that route. If most people are just going to miss him at 6,500, he's still a high target guy. So in that game, if you're trying to game stack, you could do both, right? And then run it back with Kyler and DJ or something. I mean, there's ways to be creative. To your point, you mentioned a couple of times already. I kind of off the radar because I know Tate would be one that everybody talks about. I just think this price is really cheap for they're at home. 4,500 for Curtis Samuel to me because he has a potential to have that 100-yard game, a touchdown type deal. Allen's playing decent back home in Carolina. I don't think Jacksonville's obviously got some momentum. But I wonder if our boy is going to show up and finally play, or if he's going to continue to be sick or hurt, or I don't know if his wife had a baby. I know that was on the schedule. So if it was, that's one thing. But maybe if they got a little momentum, he decides to forgive and forget. I don't know. I've also heard he could wind up, in Pittsburgh for all we know. Who knows? Yeah. Or San Diego. The Chargers was the other one. But if he's out, I definitely like Samuel more because it's just 1 week. It shifts everybody one and. Between DJ Moore and Samuel, I think you could pick one or the other. I lean towards ownership there. I assume Samuel may be less owned, but that's definitely a guy that I like. It's just kind of an off-the-radar value. There's obviously plenty of chalky ones that you can find as the week goes on, especially as these injuries shake out. So I want to get a little bit different there. I'll lead off tight ends. We just do one play, one fade, one value. My play is the same game, Olsen. I really like Ertz. I don't know if I can talk myself into 6,000 yet. I haven't done any construction. I think Waller's obviously going to continue to be high owned. I don't know if I'd go to him this week in London of all places against the Bears. I do like Chicago spread wise in that game right now, but I don't mind Ertz or Andrews in a sense. But if I'm just trying to find that a next level type tight end that I think still has a high upside. Allen obviously will rely on Olsen, so I don't mind him. I'm still going to stay on him at 4,000. My fade is Ingram. I think Minnesota does a great job on scheming on things, and Ingram's obviously a big part of that offense. So I think they could try to scheme him, limit him as much as possible. And at $5,800, I'd rather spend my money elsewhere this week. So I don't think I'm going to go to Danny Dimes by any means against the Vikings D. I know they're at home, so that's one plus, but I'm gonna fade Ingram this week and think the Giants may take a step back. Obviously on a high right now, and my value still going to go back to him. One of these days he's going to have a 20-point game. OJ Howard 3,900. See that game being higher scoring. Talked about it. I think he could be a run it back guy if I go Bridgewater, Kamara. Michael Thomas, go cheap with OJ as a running back type deal on a game stack potentially there, maybe less owned. So I kind of like OJ's value. What do you like at tight end?
We got some similar thoughts there. I am going to go to Ertz. I think I get what you're saying totally, and you're right. People are looking to pay down. It almost becomes contrarian just by the price being what it is, right? People look at the price and go, I can go down to these cheap guys they've got there. But Ertz is like a $6,000 wide receiver one. I still cannot believe that he hasn't got it into the end zone yet. He's got 38 targets on the season and still no touchdowns. So got to think that turns around. It's a good matchup for them here. I do like him. My fade was the same as you on Ingram. Minnesota's actually not been that great against the tight end, but like you said, they scheme pretty well for guys. And the other issue is you've got, this is where it gets tricky for the Giants, and whether they've got connections or not with Danny Dimes, as you mentioned. Tate comes back off the suspension. Right. Tate's a slot guy. Ingram's the slot guy. Shepard's been in the slot. Like, what's going to happen? So I don't really like that situation as a whole. I could see playing Golden Tate as another cheap value this week, but I'm not big on Ingram, and I'm not sure Shepard's role. There's a good article on it. I still haven't got to it yet. Someone posted on Twitter today. I got to read it to sort of get an idea there. I know Jordan Rannon is a guy that is a beat writer for the Giants that everyone follows in the DFS industry. He's the one who put it out. I got to check it out later, read up on that. Maybe some stuff will change by the time we get to the audible. And then my value, like I said, I just, because of the Auden Tate love, and you mentioned some great leverage spots this week, like you're talking about Curtis Samuel and Olsen when everyone's going to be on CMC. You're talking about adding in Bridgewater when everyone's going to be on Michael Thomas, but for some reason not pair him with his quarterback. It's just the way that's how you leverage people and get ahead of these big fields. And I'm still going to go to Eifert. I think people are going to look and see his snap counts low. CJ Uzoma's been in there. If you look, though, CJ Uzoma's a blocking tight end. He does get some targets, but of 16 targets on the season that Eifert's got, which is still 4 a game, it's not a huge number, but it's 4 a game. It's 4 a game. He's got 4 end zone targets. So they are still targeting the big body in the end zone. They've lost Ross for the big play, so they want to go underneath a little bit more. And if you just want to, leverage off of Auden Tate, you can. If you want to use Boyd, who you mentioned, can be another leverage play, but I still like Eifert for that value. The Arizona still hasn't shown. If put it this way, if Will Dissly's getting there, I think he had almost 20 fantasy points last week. Everybody's getting there still, so they can say they want to shut it down, but they haven't been able to. So that position is just getting eaten up. And then I did have a backup call. Was my other one in case you had something like that? Was because he's sort of the chalk. Was Howard, who you mentioned, a great bring it back. He's going to get there one of these days, and it seems like this game might be the busiest for him, the highest total, and then the one that everybody forgets about him because they just saw Godwin and Evans have back-to-back good games. So I'm going with OJ Howard as well as another value.
Yeah, in line there. Defense-wise, I think it's kind of a unique, not unique week, but in my rankings that I'll release here in a little bit, I know I didn't get them out yet. They are done. I just got to wrap them up. 5 of my top 6 teams are at home. So I think it's a theme of home Ds this week, which I generally try to go to anyways. My play right now is the Saints, only on the sense of they're cheap. Not cheap. Winston can always have a Winston game, especially on the road. He's coming off a high. I could see a scenario where the Saints cause some turnovers, may give up 25, 28 points, but score well with sacks and turnovers. And so there's the Giants there. I don't really see them, Kirk Cousins does. I could see that in a sense, but not really. The Pittsburgh Ravens game we haven't even mentioned. We'll probably do a little talk on that in a second. That could be just a good game to go to because of, in general, those games are low scoring, but not one that just, gets that I think pops to me. And then the Bengals, I definitely not going to play their D at 2,500. So the Saints were kind of the default there for now. I have to deep dive on that a little bit. And then my value is the Titans. I like the Titans at home against Buffalo, especially if Josh Allen's out. He's in concussion protocol still. They will be chalk, I think, if he is out. But even if not, I still like them at home. I think, it's a good D. You can isolate Buffalo and force them into situations that you saw last week with the Patriots. Buffalo can stay in the game playing ugly, which allows a Titans D to score. So I like Titans on that as my value. What about you?
I got the Eagles out of the gate. I really don't care if Darnold comes back or not. I'm sort of with you on that. If it's Luke, I am your Fokker, then I'm even more happy with it. But a little bit of savings from New England there. Home game, like you talked about, home favorite. Philly's got to really get it moving here now. So I like them for the savings off New England. And then my value, it's not just because of the narrative, but Arizona at 2,900. Since he did look really bad, I know they get to go back home. It's one of those spots like everyone last week liked all the Washington values, and then Washington didn't play well. Washington sucks too. So it's sort of the same thing this week. The Auden Tates, the Eiferts, the guy that I mentioned, like they're good one-off value plays if you need them or something like cash games. But I could really see them failing. And so you've got, since he's looked bad, you could pair Arizona with DJ. It definitely fits that narrative if you want to just run the defense running back correlation. And then the sad news today, their owner Bidwell passed away at age 88. I think we've seen it in the past with Art Modell, with different owners where it's just a narrative thing, but they pass away. And it's actually the defense that comes out the strongest and plays for their team. And I could see like a shutout or something silly happening just because, they come out and want to play the best they possibly can, even in the midst of what just happened. So, we just saw in golf with the Cam Champ scenario where his grandfather's going through some stuff and he battles through it because of that and for him. And it really motivates these people in these high level sporting events. So I do like the Cardinals at $2,900 this week, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, I could see that. That could be a good call.
Contrarian, I think, but it's different, right?
Sure. Yeah, no, I definitely see that. Who are your stacks this week? Your top 2 stacks that you like?
Chalk that I've already talked about right now, but I love Watkins, so I gotta love Fuller and Hopkins. I actually like triple stacking it. I think we could see a game where much like with Winston last week, where you got Godwin and Evans going. See that sort of thing, or like Goff on the other side. I could see that here with that game. But using someone like a Hyde, like you mentioned, that's how you mix it up, and he can still catch passes. So he's a spot where you can put the running back with his quarterback on those checkdowns and then move it on. We know pass catching running backs get there against Atlanta. So I definitely love that quad. Be writing that up and some more details on it, some stats to go with it. And then Cousins, Diggs, Thielen obviously hinges on if Diggs is even going to be in the game. But, I got to go with that. I think this, like I said, that squeaky wheel thing is a real deal. It was what you talked about where Thielen called him out. And it was funny because Cousins is the one that apologized, even though Thielen's the one that sort of was out of line and calling his boy out. But who knows if it's out of line, right? If you're saying, look, man, we can't just start, you can't run it every game. We have to throw some passes. We got playmakers. Get us the ball. I was talking last week's coin flip about Diggs and running those routes and how open Diggs has been getting. And finally they got him a few touches last week. I think he had something like 18 DK points, but it's not enough, man. You got to throw the ball. So I really like that stack to get on track this week for me.
No, I'm interested to see how that game plan works out for them. I think there's a little frustration, obviously, with the wide receiver. I mean, last year, to start the season, that combo was. I mean, you got to throw the ball. I mean, I get Cook and all that, and I get their division, and it's tough to do that, week in and week out. But they got to open that playbook up some. Definitely frustrations happening there. Obviously, my first one's pretty easy: Bridgewater, Thomas, Kamara. I actually don't mind running back the D as well. I could start out Bridgewater, Thomas, Kamara, D, OJ Howard. There's 5, and then decide if I want to add another piece in or not, or kind of just pivot off. I mean, build the rest out from there. I like Watson, Hopkins, Fuller, Hyde type deal. 2 of those guys, 3 of those guys, you put all 4, 3 of them, and pick a Falcon you think that could flourish. Freeman, you could run it back there. I don't mind that, like you said. So those are kind of the 2 stacks I'm on right now. Could add some more by the time we get to the Audible Saturday night. Favorite 2 plays against the Super Contest, Super7 spreads. I'll kick off my first one, although I bet this earlier in the week at a much better number. The Super Contest line was 5.5, and I am on the Bears minus 5.5. My second one is the Jets plus 13.5 is the line. I think if Darnold plays, that comes down just a hair, but I didn't care if he played or not. I like the number in that situation. What are your 2 games against the spread you like?
I didn't recognize the Jets being as strong. I actually like that one. I wish I had saw that. But the Arizona Cardinals on the road, I talked about the defense. I talked about playing for their owner that just passed. I talked about pretty much everything. I actually like this spot. We just saw Pittsburgh and Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers light up Cincy. I know they get to go back home, but it's also a short week. They're just not good. Now John Ross is gone. They lose that deep threat. Guys can hone in on Mixon or hone in on Boyd. Like, there's just so many opportunities there, and I don't think Arizona's as bad as everybody thinks. So we'll go with them there. And then Minnesota minus 5.5, beat them to death on this pod. But like I said, I just feel like that's a spot where they're still going to be fine. And the Giants haven't shown me enough to get excited about them. They've got, like I talked about, that mix-up now with not necessarily a mix-up. Might be better for them for all I know. It's all a matter of opinion. But with Tate coming back, it certainly changes the dynamic, and they got to figure that out. And then they were just working with Gallman, with Shepard and Ingram, and now you got Tate in the mix. It definitely changes it up a little bit, maybe a little bit of confusion there. And obviously, it's not like Minnesota's a bad team here. We're talking about a great team, the favorite for a reason. So minus 5.5 is the line in the Super 7. I'll take that.
I don't mind either one of those plays. I've been on the Cardinals enough. I might as well stay on them, but I'm not sure. I hadn't figured that out yet. I hadn't deep dive into some of those plays. I think I released 4 plays early on NFL, which is unusual for me, but I thought there were some great line values. So if you're not a member, some good news coming up on some other fronts here in a few minutes, but you can get in now and get those plays before the lines move. The Survivor, as you mentioned, did not go too well for a lot of people. I did not have time to go look at how many people got killed last week. I'm sure JB has the total number, but a lot.
I think over 100 right out of the gates, just boom.
Yeah, I was one of them in both of ours. I'm still alive in my other one I've done. And so with that one, I'm going to go the Chiefs. I think the Colts keep that game closer than 11.5, but I don't see the Chiefs losing at home against the Colts. Right. I don't think the Colts have enough firepower to win, but I think they could stay within, or be down 16 in the fourth, get us touchdown, lose by 9 type of deal. Definitely in play. Not one of my plays yet. It's hard to go against Mahomes in certain situations, but I would take them if I was – well, I probably will take them in my other one, but I would definitely take them if I was still in ours. Who would your team be if you still had life?
Yeah, I wrote them down. I said the Chiefs #1 because that's who most likely people have because they just haven't got used yet. But I still like the Eagles, and if somehow you have the Pats, I doubt you do. But Eagles were second, Pats were third. Just I thought no one would have them, but I'm with you on the Chiefs.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. If you saw the Patriots, you playing this week against Washington. Not going to right. Just move on. I should have done it with the Chargers, and I did on my other one. The other one, and I went Rams too. So the other one, I went Rams Chargers. So I still have life there in one.
And the Chargers started out so slow, like it looked like it was going to work. It really did. And then sure enough, and I was like, oh, this is it. It's going to happen. It's happening. And no, it was not happening. It was the complete opposite in the second half. And brutal beat, but it happened to a lot of people. That's the way it goes. It's one of those spots where you feel like we said on the pod, this is going to be the spot where everyone takes the Chargers and gets buried, one of those survivor weeks. And it was true, but everyone got too cute, myself included, went over to the Rams, and they were the team that got beat in the spot against Tampa Bay with a 10-point favorite or 9.5 favorite. And just the way it goes. Still fun. Lots of people still in it, and good luck to the rest of them. But we'll keep adding it in on the pod, I think, just to give an idea. I'll sort of play it like if I didn't go out, who'd I be on?
Right. Yeah. And I keep mine going. I still have one going, so I'm using that as my key, but I keep the other one going if I happen to go out, just to give advice of who potentially you'd have left in your pool. Or I'll go look at our board that shows the amount of times the team's been used. So we could go off that and say, hey, this team hasn't been used that much, so I'd use them.
Yeah.
Before we go final thoughts and wrap it up, because it's your team, it doesn't look like a very sexy DFS game, but what are your thoughts on the Steelers Ravens overall?
It's always a bloodbath. I think you probably know the stats better than I do, come from the betting background, but I honestly think it's like a 3-point game, like 70% of the time between those two teams and like the history. Cause it's not like they play way more than everybody because it's division games. So they play twice a year, but I'm saying it's still only 2 times a year. And I know that's in a 16-game season. That's a lot, but it's over time. I think it's something like 60% plus that these guys run at +3 is like you take the points every time. So there's that, like you were talking about earlier, for defenses and for DFS and whatnot, neither team makes a bunch of mistakes. That's the problem. It's just going to be a run, smash mouth football, division type game, run it in their mouth, that sort of thing. But I guess, just being a homer, I will take some Baltimore stacks because I think their defense is better than what they've shown the last 2 weeks. It sounds like the media and everybody, the mainstream stuff is, it was just Arizona and Miami. They actually suck. They just beat 2 shitty teams. And okay, that's fine. That's fair. But it wasn't, Cleveland needed to get a win. It's not like there's some poor team. They're a team that everyone had as a massive favorite for this division. So for them to get the win is not a big deal. And then Kansas City Chiefs, we were in that game. We lost, but we're talking about the best team in football, maybe them and the Patriots. So I don't think we're out of it by any means. I think there's going to be a spot here that you could still play, the Marquise Brown, Andrew stack with Lamar, and then run it back with like a Jalen Samuels and just be completely off the board and see what happens. Or even Deontay Johnson or one of these guys that we've been waiting to see break out from the Pittsburgh side and get cute in 1 or 2 lineups if you got a bunch of them, but it's not something I'd be touching in 20 lineups or less. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I would potentially do a one-off Lamar Jackson in a single bullet this week.
Naked Lamar. I should have mentioned that. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, 7,100, no one is going to be on him hardly. One of the lowest games on the slate, 44 total points predicted, which is still not terrible. I mean, the highest is 40.5, but it's middle, right there, bottom 30-40% of the slate. And that I like going to guys that were the limelight for a couple. I mean, everybody's on them, and then a couple things happen, and all of a sudden, no one's talking about them. Well, in a game that may not score a lot, a running quarterback appeals to me because he could get, 80 yards rushing, call it 200 passing, 2 or 3 touchdowns, maybe 2 touchdowns only, and especially if he gets 2 rushing touchdowns type deal. I mean, there's something unique there that can return it. And then if he just has a great game, you get a complete opposite, and it winds up being some type of shootout that we didn't expect. And they finally take the, fucking tricycles off Rudolph, who has one of the best arms in the league, and they refuse to let him throw it. You could have a game break out. And so that's a unique strategy to think of, but I wouldn't put it past. Maybe in especially if you're doing like a a 5 max lineup build. You use them once and try to build something around them, or go really chalky on some of these other spots and then just throw Lamar in there as the naked part of it to just be way different. It's a strategy to think about, and he's on my list. The other one on my list before I turn it over to you for your final thoughts, I don't know how chalky he's going to be. Normally, those London games are kind of snoozers to start out with, or defensive driven. But I don't mind Chase Daniels, the Chicago defense, and an Allen Robinson type deal, or maybe you even go David Montgomery, Chase in the D, or David, something like that. Mainly because it's an advantage point on your swapping type stuff that they play so early, right? That I think, normal the London games are 8 a.m. or whatever.
They changed that this year. So you're on the. I get what you're saying, but they lined it up. So actually, I bet you a lot of people don't even know that game is in London. So it's good that you brought it up. It looks on your calendar and on your slate and everywhere. It's the same time as all the other games.
Okay, so same main slate. So, but nonetheless, I think a forgotten game in a sense, other than the Bears D would probably be owned in that situation, because I think Raiders may not travel well over there. But Gruden's a pretty disciplined guy. We'll see how that plays out. But I don't mind Chase being 4,800. It opens up your a build for you if you go Chase and Robinson or take a risk on one of the other wide receivers. Get the D in there and then maybe run it back with a Josh Jacobs. I wouldn't do Josh Jacobs. So never mind that. But against the Bears D, but just to throw out a couple of like unique type deals that have ideas on the board. It's nothing that I would go like you said. If you're doing 50 lineups, I wouldn't mind doing 2 or 3 out of that game. That's a unique situation being away. Obviously, it's like the lowest on the board, so not many people are going to be on there. Maybe outside Buffalo, Tennessee, not a lot of attention on that game, so you could look at that. What's your final thoughts as we wrap it up on the hour mark?
I don't have much. I mean, we talked about quite a bit tonight. And like I said, it was more just hitting on the point of why we bring it out now, why we want you guys to be a part of this. We appreciate everyone that listens. We appreciate everyone that, it's part of the community, or if you're not, we'd love to have you as part of the community. But a lot of good thoughts this week. It's going to be a big week. There is a lot of injuries, like you said, and what we've talked about here. So definitely get back with us for the Audible. That's where, we'll have our final answers, so to speak, and say where we're at for the rest of the week. And you'll find out what some of those last minute stacks are, or guys we've come off of or added into our pool and went heavy on, because it does change in football. Last week, one was Chubb when Brandon Williams was ruled out, or going to be ruled out from the Ravens defense. That was a huge factor, and Chubb ended up being like 5% owned. Fournette, another one, right? When everybody was on Mac, there was lots of different spots like that. So definitely bring it back on Saturday with us with the Audible. We'll get you guys set up.
Yep. As always, join us Saturday night, 7 Eastern. In the live member chat only, you can go to our Slack and go to #LiveChatQuestions, the channel, and drop questions in there all day, Friday, Saturday. We start the show off with that, and then we hop on the YouTube to fill in any questions that have come in since then. Last Saturday was a great back and forth with you guys, so it really helps when you guys are engaged, and the questions you guys had lined up throughout the day really help fire off great and get good conversations going, so we appreciate that. It is behind the paywall on our private YouTube channel, so got to be a member. Speaking of that, join now, use the code GCFFG, get 15% off any monthly or annual package, content and analysis package, or our football tools package. Currently, our content and analysis package also includes our free trial preview of our golf tools as we are building them out through the rest of the fall. They will be free all the way until the Tournament of Champions. So joining the content analysis package will get you access to the golf tools for free. So that's a great add-on. On top of, excited to announce that we have officially decided as a organization to bring the NBA and Major League Baseball product to our platform, starting with the NBA here in the next few weeks. Preseason will fire up. I will announce the guys and everything out later on tonight, obviously internally first, and then put it out for everybody to see who's going to be running those. Have agreed to terms with both the heads for MLB and NBA. Obviously, MLB is wrapping up now, but we will have that wall-to-wall content coverage. The nice thing that's always about Gup's Corner and what I've been a core for us is there is no extra price for that. So if you're a current member, congrats. You just got full NBA and MLB coverage for no additional cost. If you now think that if we weren't worth the value before, which I don't know how we weren't, we certainly are now offering college football, NFL, PGA, NASCAR, specialized horse racing in depth with OG John and others. And then NBA and MLB to that package for the 2020 seasons. No extra cost there. So our prices are on the page. We have introduced our packages. So you can go on the website, check them all out. If you're a new member, you can combo package the football tools and the content analysis for a month or annual. Weekly options are just for the content analysis package. You can't do that for tools. Just too much to handle there. So when we announce the golf tools as a current member, or if you join now, you will be able to add the golf tools to your package for a discounted price. The lowest discount we ever give will be internally to our members only for the golf tools, just like we did the football tools. So it's always advantages to be inside the circle in that instance as we release new stuff. Not much I can say there other than we're great. We're excited. Kind of like college football. I will not be leading it. We got two great guys that have done an amazing job and proven themselves. Obviously, I'll be overseeing them in a sense, but they are our lead, just like Bobby Burger's our lead for college football. Looking forward to it. We will have a 2-man team for NBA, and we have one guy for MLB now, and then we'll be looking to add another as we get closer to the season in the spring. Exciting stuff. I told you guys we would continue growing. You guys supporting our community helps us to be able to do this. My mainstay that I will never charge separate for every single sport will always stay, and I think we're proving that now. The tools are specialized. They cost. There's cost to them. That's why we spin them off. That's the only thing that's separate. But you don't have to have them, right? If you want all the NBA and MLB and football and golf content that we put out and our opinions and rankings, all that stuff, you get them. They're all one price, all one package. I think our tools have proven themselves already. People love them. So you can add those on. 15% off all that with the code GCFFG. Get in now before the NBA season kicks off. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. These guys did a great job in some test trials we did, and the internal Slack guys that got to deal with them enjoyed it greatly. So looking forward to it. We will see you Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time for the Audible. For JB behind the mic, Tambo, myself, have a good night and have a great week.